When Wave 3 of Fire Emblem Engages DLC came out, there was a lot to be excited about. New emblems, new maps, and new skills to inherit. But there's another feature added in this update, the Ancient Welll, and it's way more impactful than I realized. Unlike the other features I just mentioned, the well is free, it becomes available after Chapter 6, and here's how it works. Every time you complete a chapter, you can throw up to 5 items down the well, and when you complete another chapter, the well will have replaced the items you put in with a variety of new items. What new items you get depend on luck and how valuable the items you threw in the well were. When I first read about this feature, it just sounded like some silly fun, but in practice, you get some very good output from the well. Let's take a look at some of what you can get, and I'm going to be borrowing some math here from a Reddit post by CoBlackMagus, and that's linked in the description if you want to check it out. These are the possible outputs if the items you throw in the well have a value of less than 1,000 gold. It may not look like much, but I want to draw your attention to the middle here. You can get a Novice Book, which provides 100 SP 50% of the time, and an Adept Book, which adds 500 SP 10% of the time. So this is when the well is at its worst, and it's still providing an extra source of SP, which there aren't a ton of in Engage, particularly without online features. And remember, this is what you get for throwing literally anything in the well. You can throw a 1-use vulnerary in, and you have a chance of getting 600 skill points back. However, if you're willing to invest a bit more into the well, the output only gets better. Let's look at the 2-star table, which is what you get if you throw at least 1,000 gold worth of items into the well. We see a few more items here, notably some decent staves in the form of Mend, Restore, and Obstruct, and the skill book chances also increase, with the Novice Book going up to 75 and the Adept Book going up to 30. So that's not too bad, but we really start cooking with gas on the next step. You get a 3-star table if you throw at least 5,000 gold worth of items into the well, and this is my favorite amount to put in. 5,000 might sound like a lot, but let's take a look at what you get here. Extra longbows, early killer weapons, and if you're really lucky, maybe even an early Master Seal. There are even some items you can get from the well here that the game usually provides only a limited amount of, such as Physic and Rewarp. The odds aren't very high for each item individually, but remember that you get to do this every chapter, so you're gonna get some of these rare items from time to time over the course of a playthrough, and the only cost is a couple steel weapons and an iron weapon you probably weren't using anyway. Although some of the items are exciting, the most important thing here is again the skill books. This time we're guaranteed a Novice Book and have a 50% chance of getting an Adept Book. New to this tier is the Expert Book, which grants a whopping 1,000 skill points to a unit. I like this tier because it's where you start to be guaranteed skill points and have a solid chance of getting more than 100. It's worth noting that at this point we start getting a lot of stuff back from each well pull, and anything you don't want can just be tossed back into the well. So 5,000 gold might sound like a lot, but you often get 3,000 to 5,000 gold in items from the well that you can just throw back in. Alternatively, if you get one of the better weapons, great, you can throw whatever they are replacing into the well. For this reason, level 3 wells are a great choice for getting a good return on your investment without losing too much value in terms of the items that you throw in. For big spenders, we have our last 2 well outputs. 4-star well pulls are granted when you spend 10,000 gold worth of items on well input, and include some great rewards such as silver weapons and magic weapons like the Levin Sword and Radiant Bow. You can also get additional warps and rescues in this tier, and you can even get a second seal from this well, so if you're lucky you might be able to get an early second seal for a unit like Jean. You probably won't have enough valuable items to regularly use this well in the early game without DLC, but later in the game you can get 4-star well pulls a lot more often. Unfortunately, the 4-star well isn't as cost efficient as earlier ones. While 1 to 3-star wells often offer enough value in items to pay for the next well, 4-star wells usually don't because they just cost so much more. And we also start to see some smaller returns on SP for our gold here, as a 4-star well offers less than double the SP from a 3-star well, but for double the price. And if you buy too many 4 or 5-star wells, it's actually feasible to reach a point where you have more SP than you know what to do with, or hit a bond fragment bottleneck that prevents you from spending it all. So the real value of a 4-star well to me is the unique items that you can get from it. Pulling an extra entrap, warp, or rescue is a big deal, but it's a gamble since they have low appearance rates, so I like to do these once in a while when I'm hoping for a big influx of SP or trying to fish for a rare item. Lastly, the 5-star wells cost 20,000 gold worth of items and offers brave weapons and even stat boosters, though those only have a 1% chance to appear. One thing that bothers me about this tier is that the Adept book only has a 90% chance of appearing. Obviously that's very good, but it also feels a little bad that you can spend 20,000 gold worth of items and still possibly only get 100 skill points out of it. I also question whether the reward from 5-star wells is so much better than the 4-star wells that it's worth paying double. Maybe if you really want an early brave weapon or tomahawk. The stat boosters available here are a big boon if you get them, but the appearance rate is only 1% each, so you're not that likely to get one. With all of this in mind, I recommend doing mostly 3-star well pulls. These pulls are often self-sustaining and offer a good amount of SP, and they have some potential to give you some nice items earlier than usual, like the killer weapons or even a master seal. It is fun to do some of the higher star wells as well to see if you can high roll an extra warp, so it's a good option if you don't mind coughing up some gold and feel like taking a chance. If you do most of your pulls at the 3 or 4-star level, then you'll get lots of items, but most importantly, thousands of additional skill points throughout your playthrough. This lets you do some pretty nuts things. The obvious application is that you're able to use the well to get more skill points before you lose access to early emblems in Chapter 10. This makes it easier to grab Cantor on more units, particularly the Brodians, who can be difficult to get 1000 SP on without slowing down or planning carefully. Alternatively, you could use the extra SP to grab a unit and extra skill on top of Cantor that would be more difficult to afford without the SP from the well. Some interesting early options are favorite food, which I like to put on my Byleth user. This makes it so you can instantly replenish your engage meter and get another big 4-way dance without having to wait for Celica to return much later in the game to get favorite food. With good well luck, you could even pick up something more expensive like Holdout or Momentum, which can add some additional unique utility to your early game units. This is especially true if you're playing DLC and you get a bunch of extra maps, then you'll get even more well pulls and more SP to spend on early skills. Skill points from the well aren't just useful for early game units though, they're also great for later recruits, particularly high investment ones. If you did a 3-star well donation each chapter, you'll have an average of about 1,750 extra skill points to distribute by chapter 11. That's when we get Ivy. To do her best, Ivy wants speed help in the form of Lyn or a lot of speed from skills. She comes with 1000 SP on her own, so using well skill books you can do something like immediately get Ivy Speed Taker and Speed +3, and this lets you put Lyn on a different unit while still enjoying an Ivy that can double enemies in the mid-game. Ivy can eventually get these skills without the well, but you can grab them so much earlier with it. This goes for every unit that wants specific skills, so your heroes and warriors, for example, can pick up Dual Assist Plus earlier using skill points from the well. Depending on your strategy, you can funnel all of your extra skill points into one unit to get their loadout set up way earlier, or distribute them among a few units to get each of them their skills slightly earlier. By the late game, you'll have picked up even more extra skill points, which makes more expensive skills a lot more attainable. Something like Roy's Sword Power 5 is usually difficult to achieve at a price of 5,000 skill points, but with skill books it becomes a much more realistic option for a unit like Chloe, where it basically solves her late game damage problems with the Levin Sword. Alternatively, you can do something like inherit Lunar Brace on a fast but weak unit like Lapis, and then throw Roy on her to get both Roy's strength boost and the extra player phase damage from Lunar Brace. Normally this might be difficult to achieve and wouldn't be achievable until later in the game because Lunar Brace and Lunar Brace Plus cost 3,000 and 5,000 SP respectively, but using the well it's a lot quicker to pick up Lunar Brace and still have SP left over to fill that second slot with Cantor or Cantor Plus. Being able to afford a lot more inherits also opens up more emblem options for units. For example, in a typical run, a Vantage Wrath unit uses Ike both for his added defenses and to save 2,000 skill points on inheriting Wrath. But now it's a lot easier to inherit both Wrath and Vantage, so you can set up multiple Vantage Wrath units or use them with a different emblem equipped more easily than you could without the extra skill points from the well. Earlier access to more expensive skills and good skill combinations can make mid and early late game maps a lot easier and get your good combat units snowballing hard. There are a few interesting ramifications of having so many extra skill points beyond just being able to buy more skills. First, in my current playthrough with no update content beyond the well, I hit a bond fragment bottleneck way earlier than I do in a typical run. Buying more skills and buying expensive skills means spending more time battling emblems in the arena, which can become very pricey in terms of bond fragments. This is somewhat fixable by just doing all of the tasks that earn you bond fragments, make sure you feed and pet Sami and pick up the bond frags around the Somnial, and perhaps most importantly, do the fishing minigame. If you catch a few large fish, you can get a few hundred bond fragments or more from fishing every chapter. For me, this is unfortunate because the fishing minigame is time consuming and I don't like it that much, but it does seriously help you avoid these bond fragment bottlenecks and get you all of the skills that you want. Fishing also has some achievements associated with it, so that will give you a little bump to your bond fragments as well. I also think that the well hurts some of the later units a little bit. Part of the appeal of a unit like Linden is that he comes with a large amount of skill points, so he can immediately pick up a couple good skills that your other units might not be able to. This is made a little less valuable now because everybody can just afford good skills in a timely manner. Additionally, you're much more likely to be shorter on bond fragments by the time you recruit these late game units, since you'll probably be doing a lot more emblem arena fighting before they arrive to get your early and mid game units set up with the skills that you want. If you aren't careful with how you spend your bond fragments, you might not have enough by the time these late joiners come to get them to the bond levels they need for the skills that you want on them. Linden is the unit I think this hurts the most. Other later recruits all have something better going for them besides just skill points. Gold Mary is just a couple levels away from Brave Assist, Saphir comes in with a good class and with good enough strength to chip and kill some flyers, and Mauvir and Vale come with 2 extra deployment slots that few other units compete for. So with that in mind, I think 2 types of units benefit most from the well. First, early game units, especially the Brodians, who don't get a ton of time to build up SP before Chapter 10. These units will have no problem getting Canter now, and can often pick up a second skill if you want them to. Second is anyone that desperately wants skills to perform. So this is for units like Ivy that have a big issue that they normally overcome by holding on to a specific emblem. Instead, we can now fix these issues in just a chapter or 2 using skill books from the well to inherit skills that patch up their issues. Units that require less investment and are less skill dependent are less impacted, but even they benefit from the well. Units like Kagetsu still appreciate a speed plus inherit if they change to a lower speed class, and they also still want generally good skills like Canter plus. So this was all assuming no DLC, but if you do have DLC, you get even more chapters to benefit from using the well, as well as a bigger variety of skills you can spend well skill points on. Early Starseer inherits become a valid option for pumping up your unit's growths, or you can make a great support unit by inheriting Rally Spectrum Plus onto a unit. Regardless of what you decide to do, the well gives you tons of access to skill points that opens up a fair amount of new build possibilities for your team. If you're going to be using a lot of expensive and powerful skills though, you are going to run into bond fragment bottlenecks, so you better get fishing. But before you grab your virtual rod and tackle box, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like it, consider hitting the like or subscribe button so that you never miss an upload, and also consider joining the community Discord in the video description if you want to chat about Fire Emblem. Either way, have yourself a lovely week.